It measures just 9 inches in circumference, weighs only about 5 ounces, and is made of cork wound with woolen yarn, covered with 2 layers of cowhide, and stitched by hand precisely 216 times.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
From the Baker Bowl to the Sky Dome. Welcome to 216 Stitches. How you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm doing good, Kevin. I'm doing all right, I guess. You know, it's a bit of a tough weekend, and
Yeah, it never happened.
no, it was I took quite a beating on social media from friends and coworkers, and
I saw that.
everyone alike.
Facebook,
Yeah.
Twitter, people are... That's the thing, Rob. When you're vocal about how you love them, when it doesn't go your way, you know you're going to hear about it.
Yeah, that's the trade-off, Kevin. And you know, to be fair, it's all in good fun too. You know what I mean? Like shit happens, for lack of a better term. So.
All right, welcome to 216 Stitches. Tonight we're going to talk about a little look at the standings. We'll talk about the deadline the last couple of weeks in Major League Baseball. And after the break, we'll talk about our favorite pitchers. Not necessarily the best pitchers, but the one that caught our attention, sparked our imagination, and made us fall in love with a different type of pitchers. Let's start with the deadline that happened last week. Well, it was almost 10 days ago now. 10 days ago now, almost 2 weeks. Rob, the Blue Jays basically won the deadline day and know what the team has done before?
Yeah, you'd be stupid to say that any other team didn't win the trade deadline. And the Jays bringing in 5 new players, obviously Tulowitzki, Price, Revere, Hawkins, and who am I missing? LaTroy Hawkins.
Mark Lowe.
Oh yeah, Mark Lowe from the Seattle Mariners. I mean they improved every aspect of their team, from pitching to hitting to their bullpen to their defense and their speed. Like, they improved every aspect of the team. And you know, while other teams won other sweepstakes, like Texas went and getting Cole Hamels, the Mets getting Johan Cespedes, the Jays are a distant first place as far as the trade deadline goes. Now, is that going to translate into playoff success? Only time will tell.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Remember Cole Hamels? We missed it on the show here. We're a little bit of a summer break last couple of weeks, but just before he got traded, Cole Hamels threw a no-hitter.
Yep.
How's that for timing, and how is that to shut your doubters up when they were talking about how he's not the pitcher he used to be, he's not having the best season? I think the pressure's getting to him. His last outing as a Philly, it's a no-no.
Yeah, so it was a great party gift for his for the Philadelphia, what's called the Flyers, for the Philadelphia Phillies. And we discussed how his numbers were a little bit deceiving with the Phillies. He didn't have a great record, but he was playing for the Phillies, right? So obviously, the numbers are going to be a little bit skewed. So him playing on a team like Texas, which aren't really in playoff. They're in play, like, they're only 3.5 games back of the wild card, I believe. 4 games back of the wild card, I believe. So, I mean, obviously not insurmountable odds, but it's not like they're in the huge thick of things. I guess we'll see if his numbers improve while he's there.
No, absolutely. The thing is, with the Rangers, it's more of a trade for next year. Cole Hamels not being a loanee, not being just a temporary patch, because he has a contract valid for next year as well. So it's not like David Price. David Price is technically just a loan for this year, basically. But if you're looking at Cole Hamels, it's different. So even though the Rangers might not be contenders, might not make the playoff for the postseason this year, they're looking at his next year with him, having him for the entire season, be able to put him as your first starter, and it's going to be different in Texas for that.
Yeah, and I think you see that a lot more than you may think. Because some people think trades are made for 5 years down the road when you're trading for players, especially for younger players, and for the now. But I mean, trading for next year is always a viable option too, because you lock up. All of a sudden you got a number one starter, you got your ace. For next year.
That's the thing with the trade with the Blue Jays, too. Not only David Price is a loanee in a way, and who knows, with the excitement in Toronto right now, with how the team is gelling on and off the pitch, and with the way Price threw his first 2 games as a Blue Jays, who knows, he might sign a new contract before he ever becomes a free agent.
I don't know if the Jays will be able to afford him. And I think the money that Price is going to demand is going to be up north of $200 million. I'm not sure how long he's looking for, but I think he's going to demand a heavy price tag. The Jays would be, the Jays will make a pitch for him, obviously, pardon the pun, but
That's two pun there. He has a nice price tag and the pitch. You're
yeah,
on the roll
exactly.
today.
Apparently, but yeah, so I think they'll make some sort of play for him, but I don't know if they. I guess we'll have to see, and that's why Anthopoulos he's going all. I wouldn't say he's going all in because he hasn't mortgaged too much of the future. I mean, they lost Daniel Norris, but they still have Sanchez, they still have Stroman. Those are the two big chips they didn't want to give up, and they still have them. So the Jays not only made a great move for this year, but the Jays are also set up nicely for the next 5 years. So it's not like it's we have to win this year or we're fucked sort of deal. So if the Jays don't re-sign Price, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Is there any other big trade that caught your attention? We know that basically every player that were rumored of being traded got traded this year. There was no team that got cold feet at the last minute. Even Cueto was traded, and after he was traded, Dombrowski actually got fired or resigned, and now there's rumors he's going to maybe head to Toronto or maybe New York with the Mets. There's a lot of different availabilities and avenues for Dombrowski as the GM of a new team next year, whatever happens with Anthopoulos. If the Jays are all in, making the postseason, Anthopoulos is staying, that's for sure. But he's been open, though, during the media calls and the media conferences about the trades that, yes, he is going all in, and he's putting his neck on the guillotine when you do moves like this. If it works, you're fine. Your head's not going to get chopped off. But because of the amount of money spent and a big move like this, if it doesn't work out, well, his head's going to get chopped. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds, because I have to say I have a little spot in my heart for Anthopoulos, a little hometown boy.
I think Anthopoulos, if you ask me, regardless if the Jays make the playoffs or not, I think he's earned a contract for at least next year. He's done everything he can this year. He's brought in the key places. It's up to the players now, and you can't fault AA for lack of trying. Same with John Gibbons. It's up to the players now. These guys have done everything they can to put a winning ball team on the field, and it's worked because as of recording today, they've won 8 in a row, hot off
10 out of 11. 10 of 11 after the deadline, and that's with Tulo playing out of his mind, with Price winning twice, and it's the response of the players so far after 11 games after the deadline. It's maybe beyond belief.
Yeah, it is, and I remember on a show that we did not too long ago, you asked me flat out if the Jays are going to make the playoffs, and I said no, I didn't think they were going to.
10 wins later, and now only 1 game and a half back of the Yankees. Do you change that answer?
Yes, and I do change that answer, and I think you kind of have to. And as much as I don't want to, admit this, but I really think that the Yankees are going to be in tight. The Yankees will be remembered for this year as what they didn't do at the trade deadline. They kind of believe their own hype. I think the Yankees kind of caught lightning in a bottle with getting hot at certain times at points in the season. They've really relied on their offense, which has been great. But I think they found out what happens when they get stymied by good pitching. Good pitching beats good offense any day of the week. And you had 2 of the best teams in the American League as far as offense-wise going at it. And the Jays held the Yankees to 1 run over a series. Now, I'm not saying that the Yankees could have gone out and got Price, but I mean they should have been in a play for maybe Cueto.
They should have tried at least.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows what happens behind closed doors, Kevin. You asked me what other trades kind of jumped out at me. I think the Mets acquiring Cespedes, that was a big one. They're going to add a good bat to their lineup.
Is this year really true for the Mets? Do they have a shot of being in the postseason? We'll look at the standings soon, but who knows? The Mets actually did some good moves, and people in New York are excited about the Mets, and just those words in the same sentence, it just feels weird. Yeah,
no, I think the Mets did it right. They usually go out and they spend a lot of money in past years, and this year they kind of took it. They almost took like a Blue Jays model, where they built within and then added pieces where they needed to. Another trade that kind of jumped out at me: the Cubs acquiring Tommy Hunter from the Orioles. Tommy Hunter is a decent pitcher. He'll help the Cubs kind of solidify, hopefully getting into the wild card spot for them. And then you have the other. Then you kind of have the like the different things, like the Pirates getting Jay Happ, former Blue Jay. Speaking of the Blues, from the Mariners, just kind of. Then a lot of the other trades are just kind of depth trades. Other than the Astros getting Carlos Gomez, that was actually pretty trade. So you got a lot of teams just kind of like adding plugs. You know what I mean? Adding mercenaries, sort of deal. And to be honest with you, Kevin, in any sport, that's what the trading deadline is it not?
Absolutely. All right. In the words of Buster Olney and a lot of other people from ESPN to anywhere you can get your baseball news, they said that this deadline was one of the most, if not the most exciting ever. And I have to agree with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to seeing, but usually baseball trade deadline is not so. It's not so late because let's face it, you have the non-waiver trade deadline that comes after July, and the Jays just took advantage of it by picking up Cliff Pennington. But there's usually a lot of hype in baseball deadline. I think maybe it's because we're so used to having the NHL trade deadline up here, where there's 8 days of coverage of the NHL trade deadline.
And usually nothing ever happens, and it's just the worst show ever. Yeah,
and then you just basically you're sitting there watching it for 6 hours, watching four guys just check their phones.
Yeah. They're doing the same thing you're doing, just they're being filmed.
Yeah, just on TV. And then,
to be honest, listening to podcasts in the baseball this year, it was kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Kevin, it's the same thing in any sport. But this trade deadline was definitely big names all together on the move. It's not like you had one big name. You had several big names, from Hamels to Tulowitzki to Kazmir to Amos Ramirez to Connor Galapsi. You've had Juan Uribe, Johnny Cueto, Shane Victor. We get it, Rob. There's a lot of people on the fucking go. But it was one of the biggest trade deadline remembers I can remember for baseball.
Let's take a look at the standings. And after the standings, I have a little game I'll play with you. It's postseason probabilities from LB.com. So we'll take a look at this after. But what's interesting in looking at the standings now, it's 11 game after the deadline. We see teams at the deadline actually helped them, and those players maybe helped them win 2-3 games more than they would have before, which equivalates of team like Toronto. It's not going to be a Toronto-centric show, but the fact that they deserve to be talked about now. And Toronto, with the run that they're on, they basically made up all the ground, and they still have about 10 games against the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, we're not a Toronto-centric show, but I mean, let's face it, they're the talk of if not the American League. I mean, Major League Baseball right now, hottest team in the league, maybe next to the Cardinals. But yeah, they made up huge ground about 10 days ago before the deadline. There were 8 games back to the Yankees. Now they're a game and a half back. The Yankees start a series with Cleveland on Tuesday, and the Jays start a series with Oakland on Tuesday. So then they play with that, and then they will be next weekend, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, all 3 games. I will be attending all 3 games live. So maybe on the Sunday night I can do a report about all 3 games and let you know how I was well received down there.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at the American League East, probably the most famous division in baseball, especially at the moment. We got the Yankees first with a record of 61 win, 49 losses, winning percentage of .555. They're first. Toronto second with a 61 win as well, but they have more games played, 52 losses. They're 1.5 games back. The streak that they're on makes them probably guaranteed a wild card, if not the top of the A-League East very soon.
Yeah, they're 3 games up on. Well, they're a half game up on LA for the. We'll obviously get to when we talk about wild card standings, but they're half a game up on LA. And they're 3 games up on Baltimore, who is they're basically they're 3 games up on a playoff spot right now. So
absolutely. So Baltimore is third with 5 games back. Tampa Bay 6 game back, and the lowly Red Sox for 2015 12 games box. You always love those words, eh?
Yeah, I love to see AL East, and I love to see Boston at the bottom. Even if the Jays just swept the Yankees, I can still take solace that the Red Sox are under 500 and at the bottom of the American League East.
I know the fact that Boston is there, I think it made an easier decision for Antopoulos to do the trades that he did and go all in. Because when you have teams like Tampa Bay and especially Boston, when they're in the running and close to it, when they're more buyers and sellers, usually they make a play, and when they get hot, they can come back. And you never know what can happen with a big market team like Boston. But this year, they're out of it. And at the deadline, they were sellers already, if not just neutral. So Toronto had maybe the open door to try to fight in this division when you know a team's already out.
Yeah, the Red Sox have been a disaster this year with all their, and I know they sell Sandoval in the offseason and whatnot. And
was a big flop. Let's just say Pablo probably put a little bit too much weight on in the off season. Not the good kind of a little. I was trying to be nice. Not the good kind of weight, and he's been on a specific diet, and he has somebody following him all the time to help him with his diet and food intake more than diet, I should say. But the panda hasn't accustomed to Boston. It's not his natural habitat, I can say.
No, it's not, and it's a quite different atmosphere than playing in San Francisco. And San Francisco, I know, has won 3 World Series in the past.
I saw him play live in San Francisco, Rob. It was I've been there a couple of years ago when I went to San Francisco, and it was different. It was a team that has something special, and when you're one of the cog of that machine, it's easier to be that good. When you become famous because of it, we saw this happen many, many times in many different sports. Champions team, when you make your name in there, it's hard to make it somewhere else after because the expectations are high, but not just that. You had other players to help you perform.
Yes, you do, and 100%, Kevin. And you couldn't have said it any better. That when you're part of a team like that, when you're part of any dynasty, whether it be the Giants or the Blackhawks or any team that's a dynasty in any sport.
What did Scottie Pippen do after he played with Jordan?
100%. That's what I mean. When you have your core players. Look at the Miami Heat. What happened with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wayne after exactly. There you go. But I mean, once you have these supporting characters. And then all of a sudden you go from being a supporting cast member to the main star of the film. Can you carry the film on your own? Maybe not. And
draw? Can you draw? That's a question.
Can you draw? To throw it back to our other podcast, Down the Aisle Wrestling podcast. And but I mean, Hanley Ramirez is having a decent season too. But it's just it's just not working out for the Red Sox, and I am not too upset. But I mean, that being said, for Pablo Sandoval, I obviously don't wish bad health on anybody, and I hope he turns it around as far as his weight wise, and just get some good health.
I hope the treadmill is turning in this case.
Yes, so do I, or not falling apart.
American Central. Kansas City with a record of 66 win, 44 losses, winning percentage of .600. Very impressive. Dominating that division with Minnesota 11.5 games back, Rob. Yeah. Detroit third with 12.5. The White Sox they're bad, 14.5 games. But there's a team even worse. The team that the Yankees are going to face starting Tuesday for the series. Cleveland with 15 games back. Kansas City just got that Central Division booked and checked for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Kansas City is going to run away with this division. Obviously, they're proven, and good for the Royals. They're really proven that last year was not a fluke. And, and a lot of people thought they were going to struggle because they lost a few key players from last year's World Series run in the offseason. But, good for Kansas City. They added some pieces too. Yeah, it was. I was at the. I actually went to a game with a friend of mine on Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember what it was. Minnesota was in town, and I just went down because I love baseball and I don't care who's playing. I enjoy watching the game. And yeah, the Twins just look like a defeated team. And I remember there was 2 loop fly balls to Torrey Hunter, and he just kind of let them both drop in front of him. And I turned and I said to my friend, I'm like, this is embarrassing. The Twins are in a fight for a playoff spot, at the moment.
They could in the wild card, even though they're trailing a little bit. But if they got their act together, they're just one game below 500.
Yeah, you need to die for those fucking balls. You need to. You need to
at least hustle for it.
Yeah, and you know what I mean. And Torrey Hunter, maybe he's just getting up there too, But I mean, you got to fucking die for those. But you got to show that you still want it. Yeah, Kansas City's going to run away with this division, Kevin. And there wasn't not too long ago when Kansas City was the joke of the American League Central and a joke of not, I don't want to say so much a joke, but a team that struggled, and those days are long over. And I remember reading an article in Sports Illustrated 2 years ago about how the Kansas City Royals, your future World Series champion within the next 3-4 years, and in the art in parentheses he says, yeah, those Kansas City Royals. Wow, Sports Illustrated hit that one out of the park because Kansas City is going to be tough to beat. Now, depending who they draw in the playoffs, but they would have a tough. Kansas City and Toronto are, I think, the two teams that no one wants to play in the playoffs right now, and
especially if it's a one-off game. You put David Price out there with the bats they have as well on their side. They're tough to beat on any given day with those pitchers on the mound.
Yes, 100%. And how much fun would a series between Toronto and Kansas City be?
It would be blue, very blue.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It would be very blue.
All right. The American League West, very more close division. Houston first with a record of 61 win, 52 losses, a winning percentage of .540. We have the Angels a half a game back, very close. Texas 4.5 games back, followed by Seattle in fourth, 8.5 games back, and Oakland. Moneyball isn't really working. In the last couple of years, I think Billy Beane needs to do something if he wants to keep his job. Who knows? Maybe it's time to him to move on and try that somewhere else. Very bad season for Oakland. 10 games back, 51-62. And Oakland, it's that type of team that even though they're not a powerhouse, baseball as a whole is better when Oakland is good. And this year, Oakland is out of it.
Yeah, what a difference a season makes, because last year this time the A's were picking up Samardzija and John Lester, and you're like, wow, these guys are going to go deep. And then they had a 4-run lead late in that one-off game against Kansas City, and we all know how that ended in an epic game, a very, very well-played game. Kansas City came back twice, I think once in the ninth and once in extra innings to win the game. Kevin, just kind of shows that putting your chips all in doesn't always work, and Oakland is kind of feeling the effects of it now. And I think
they lost their prospect. Maybe they lost the core of what they thought it was expandable. Wasn't maybe.
And I think it's time for Billy Beane to move on. I think it's time for Billy Beane to go to a team with money and see what he can do.
The Red Sox, 10 years after it should have happened.
Yeah, Red Sox. Oh, yeah, because the thing was in the movie, obviously, and I've read the book too. But in the movie, the main reason why he didn't want to go to Boston is he didn't want to leave his daughter behind. But now she's in her early 20s, I think. So, I mean, she's in college now, so I'm pretty sure she can look after herself. Billy Beane's a little bit more free to do what he wants. So I think maybe it's time for Billy Beane to go to where he can play with a little bit more of house money. So, other than that, it's Houston's been a nice surprise. That's kind of cool to see because last year they're a glorified AAA team, and now they're fighting for the American League West. So it just shows how much how much of a difference a season can make, Kevin, because you got teams that were pretty shitty last year and now they're looking pretty good this year.
National League in the East, very close division with a big race going on against two big market teams. One that I actually don't like, but it's for different reasons. We got the Mets first in the East with 59 win, 52 losses, a winning percentage of .532, followed by the Nationals. 1.5 games back, basically dominating the division, those two.
Yeah, it's a 2-horse race with those two right now. And it's nice to see because everyone thought that Washington was going to run away with their rotation, which hasn't been, I don't want to say up to snuff, but it hasn't been the dominant force that you thought with like Scherzer and Zimmerman and Strasburg. And they've been good, but they haven't been lights out. And they're only 4 games above 500, like you said, and they're a game and a half back of the Mets. So at this point right now, Kevin, they could be playing in a wild card game or a one-off wild card game if the season ended today. But
we all know Washington, so it's not going to be Strasburg. They're not going to put him in the playoff game. Going to say no, let's save him for the future.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. And,
future is now. Present is now. It's sports. They were talking about a couple of weeks. Maybe we shut them down for this season too. You know what? It's baseball. It's right now. It's not maybe for the future. Sometimes if you really want to go all in, it's have to be right now. And the way Strasburg's career has been playing the last couple of years, I have to say the hype was there. We saw a glimpse of genius, glimpse of virtuosity almost sometimes on the mound. But consistency is the key in baseball. Can't talk tonight, but that's the one thing he doesn't have, and it's consistency especially with his health.
Yeah, and they always seem to shut him down. And you're absolutely right, which I don't get. If you have an ace pitcher who's your franchise Why the fuck are you shutting him down? He should be pitching. He should be pitching those big games. He's a guy that, imagine the Jays said, "Oh, we're going to shut down David Price for the year." Can you like? It doesn't make any sense.
Just in case, so he's okay for next year. Even though it's stupid.
Yeah, but yeah, 2-horse race. I think the Mets are going to hold off on the Nats and win the division.
Atlanta 8.5 games back. Philly 14.5, and Miami. Wow, that team is. We have to be honest. It's an embarrassment. The way that team is being run, the way the amount of people supports it, the lack of support, the lack of seriousness, and everything surrounding the Marlins. Jeffrey Loria, I don't like the guy because he destroyed my team. But just when I look at the Marlins objectively, he's doing the same thing down there.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Kevin. A lot of the times I forget the Marlins exist. And they've won 2 World Series. So, and yeah, I know you're not a fan of Jeffrey Loria, and I don't blame you because I'm not either.
I used to love the Florida Marlins before Jeffrey Loria. When the Expos had a team and we played the Marlins, I actually liked the Marlins for some reason. I like the logo. It's one of the last expansion team that happened when I was a kid. And we all became, remember when you were a kid and there were expansion teams in every sports?
Yeah.
We kind of like the new teams because it's something different. We don't hate them. We haven't played against them and nothing ever happened between our favorite team and that team. So we didn't hate them as much as the other ones. So I always had a little something for the Florida Marlins. But ever since Jeffrey Loria went there, it's just a disgrace.
I don't know about the expansion teams. I will go out on a limb and say that even though if Quebec City does get its NHL team back, you probably won't have too much love for them.
Like I said on many different shows before, I hated the Nordiques so much that I don't even want them to come back. I want the people from Quebec City to be like, "Oh, wish you had a team," and I'm like, "Yeah, you don't."
Oh, that's funny.
All right, let's go to the Central of the National League Division. St. Louis, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, I think it's the oldest franchise in baseball. 71 win. I think the best record in baseball right now. 40 losses, a winning percentage of .640, and 5 games in front of Pittsburgh, second with 5 games back. Then the Cubs, 6.5 games back. Cubs are not out of it, though. They're still battling for wild card with Pittsburgh, so it's going to be interesting that you have the lowly Reds and the Brewers, which are really 21 games back and then 24 games back. The Brewers, a couple years ago, they were supposed to be good. What happened there?
Oh, well, they lost players, Kevin. They lost Fielder, they lost Sabathia, they lost Greinke. They kind of like a thing where they got people at the deadline and they went for it and it didn't work out. They lost in the National League Championship Series, so you're kind of seeing the remnants of it now. Yeah, the St. Louis Cardinals, best team in baseball. They're going to be tough to beat. Anyone who comes out of the National League in the World Series is going to be tough to beat. And I really think it's going to be, how could you not go with the Cardinals? They're on fire. They're getting it everywhere. They're getting pitching. They're getting speed. They're getting hitting. They're getting, they're Mike Matheny's one of the best managers in the game. The Cardinals are just on fire. Pirates are going to catch them. They're going to run away with this division. Not run away with it, but they're not going to lose this lead. And other than that, there's not much else you can say about the Central. The Cubs, I think, we'll look at the wild card standings in a few seconds.
You know what? I said 8.5 games back. No, I said 6.5. They're actually 8.5 games back. So
yeah,
a little further, but it's not impossible.
No, of course not. And the Jays approved an 8.5 game behind.
In 2 weeks, that's all you need.
Yeah, that's if you can make up 7 games if you have to. But I mean, I don't think that's going to happen here. I think the Cardinals are going to win this division without a doubt.
The West, the Dodgers with a winning record of 62-49 for a .559 percentage. San Francisco, the Giants, 3 games back. Arizona, 7.5 games back. San Diego, 10.5, and the Rockies last with 14 games back. You know what I've been looking at the standings right now, Rob? Dodgers, St. Louis, the Mets, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Royals. It's going to be a great postseason with teams like Pittsburgh, Chicago, San Francisco, Washington battling for the wild cards. We're going to have amazing franchises, big cities, big team in the playoff. And I'm going on a limb. If the right teams make it, it could be the most watched and most popular postseason ever for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of excitement coming down. Then we're getting into August now, so we're really getting into the excitement. As far as the National League West, Kevin, we always got, and a lot of it may sound. We all have those kind of teams that we kind of check out, and if our teams don't make the playoffs, or we kind of root for. And for me, as weird as it may sound, because they were big rivals in the early '80s, but the Dodgers for me are kind of that team, and there's only one reason, and that's because Don Mattingly is their manager. So. Yeah, I kind of have a soft spot for the Dodgers because of that reason, because of Mattingly, because I want to see him get hopefully.
It's because that's the team where Russell Martin debuted.
Yeah, there you go too. And
Game Over, Eric Gagne.
Yeah, so they've employed a couple of your provincemen
and Pedro Martinez.
Yep, you know what I mean.
And
so
Ricky Anderson. No, no, not Ricky Anderson. Oh, what's his name? Brooklyn. Jackie Robinson played for the Dodgers, played for Montreal. Even though it was the Brooklyn Dodgers then, it's still the same franchise. So Dodgers have quite a following in Montreal because of those reasons.
Yeah, because the Dodgers, the Montreal farm team was up there, right?
Yeah, the Royals were a farm team of the Dodgers, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I would like to see the Dodgers. I think they're going to hold off the Giants. The Giants, I think, but here's the thing about the Giants. They always find a way they find a way to backdoor their way into the postseason, and then once they get there, they turn it on. So you can never discount the Giants. Other than that, the other teams I wouldn't be too concerned about. The Padres have been the Padres made a bunch of moves, getting Matt Kemp and stuff in the offseason, and it obviously hasn't worked out. So,
all right, I wanted to talk to you about one thing that's hilarious. It's the postseason probabilities.
Okay.
If you look just July 24th, Toronto had a postseason percentage of 37%.
Yes.
You want to know what it is now?
What's that?
Now it's at 82%.
Oh my God!
That didn't make the playoff, and that happened in a week.
50%.
Yeah, 50% probability jump for Toronto. Now they're actually close to the Yankees. They're at 82%, and the Yankees have a 90% shot of making the playoff. With Baltimore 25, Tampa Bay 16, and Boston has 0%.
Oh wow! I was gonna ask
% of making the postseason this year.
I was gonna ask you what the lowest team was. Never mind, I got my answer. So 0% chance of making the playoffs. That sucks for them. Poor Boston.
But it's funny to watch this. Of course, when you look at those probabilities, when it's teams that not just team, but a division that are the winner, the leaders running away with it, it doesn't tell you anything. But if you go back to now the American League West, okay, 84% of the chance that Houston makes a playoff. But if you look at the Angels in the last week, they dropped 28%.
Okay.
Even more. They were at 89% July 24th.
It's amazing, Kevin, what if you go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak and the team you're chasing or the team that's chasing you goes on a 4 or 5 game winning streak, it's amazing how much can swing in 2 series, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so 7 days ago, like 10 days ago, the Angels were first in that division, and they had an 88% of making the playoff. That's considering their strength of calendar and a lot of data, considering it's a statistic that is based by Baseball Prospectus. It's a very complicated way to do it, but when the number tells you a lot. And in a week, Houston went from 55 to 85% in making the playoff, and the Angels dropped to 60. So that's just in a 9-day span. You go on a bad run in the worst time possible in the calendar when it's in the pennant stretch at the end of the season, and it can destroy your chances. And the Angels are only 1.5 games back, but it's going to be hard for them to get that first spot, and the wild card is going to be tight. You never know what can happen, and if you lose 2 or 3 games in a row, you might dip underneath that bar. And you know what happened since the last 10-11 days with the Angels? The whole manager situation, general manager, and the coach. So you know what? It did have a repercussion on the players. The numbers are telling us.
And speaking of the Angels, we'll just quickly at the wildcard standings. The Jays are a half game up on the Angels for the first wildcard spot, and the Angels are 3 games up on Baltimore for the second wildcard spot in the American League. And in the National League, the Pirates are 3.5 games up on the Cubs for the first wildcard spot, and the Cubs are 3.5 games up on the Giants for the second wildcard spot. But to go back to what you said, 100%, Kevin, because all of a sudden it creates a sense of not urgency, but a sense of like disarray in your clubhouse that all this stuff is happening, and that can spill onto the field. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. As we speak right now, the leader of the wild card in the American is Toronto, with especially the probabilities. Kansas City, Yankees, and Houston are winning their division right now, but Toronto is the best of the other teams so far. But that all changed in the last 10 days. So just to tell you that the next 10 days can be either disastrous for Toronto or for another team, anything can happen. So it's really interesting baseball this year. And for some reason, I never felt that excitement before. It seems there's so many good races, so many good baseball to watch this year. I'm just excited for the pennant stretch.
They a lot of when they brought in the second wild card spot, a lot of people poo-pooed it because they thought it would create less drama. I think it does the exact same. It keeps teams in it that would not be in it anymore. You know what I mean? It keeps interest up because because all of a sudden you have the Texas Rangers who are 4 games out of a wild card spot. But if they had it, well, hell, if they'd even have the wild card, they'd be what were they 8 games back? Did you say? And that's the thing, it would create, and people would start going, and then Ray, Kevin, it could save franchises because all of a sudden you look at the standings and you're like, oh, we're only 3 games out of a playoff spot. I mean, you might be 8, 9 games out of your division lead, but we're only 3 games out of a wild card spot or a second wild card spot. It's going to create fan interest up. It's going to continue the illusion that maybe it's a mirage almost, but at the same time, if you've got the illusion, you can make the playoffs and do that. The fans are going to show up to the games and support the team.
And that one game, one off. It's such an awesome. That's the way baseball should be played. They go all out. Every pitch means something. Every run on the bases means something. Every decision by the coach has repercussion to the result of that game. So those one-off are basically the best thing ever in baseball. And you got 2 more a year. Who's going to complain?
Exactly, and it's funny because baseball is such a marathon, and then you got that one game that's a sprint. You kind of get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll give us our top 5 or our best favorite pitchers. Not the best, but our favorite pitchers ever in baseball.
Casey saw all the games, knew the players by their first names, told the umpire he was wrong all along, good and strong. When the score was just 2-2, Casey knew what to do. Just to cheer up the boys she knew, she made the gang sing this song.
And we're back. Rob, we're talking about off air. The idea I had for that is I just always love eclectic and characters as pitchers. It seems like it's really fitting, and that's what my top 5 represent. But that was the idea behind that, our favorite pitchers.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we all have, and again, this is our favorite pitchers. It's not necessarily the best because, our lists are not going to be, they might not be Hall of Fame pitchers, but it's, our favorite, it's our favorites, our guys that we loved rooting for and guys that we looked up to when we were kids or guys that we look up to now as adults. So that's a key thing. So,
I'll set the tone. I'll start with my number 5. They're not necessarily ranked in particular order. Yeah, maybe the number 1 is there for a reason. We'll see that when we get there. But my number 5 is a pitcher that really caught my attention when I was a kid. I'll explain to you the first time I saw him.
Okay.
I was with my dad, sitting on the couch, looking at a TV, probably a Saturday afternoon, with Jacques Doucet and Roger Brulette commentating in a game. So we're there watching it. There's a guy pitching. He's got one hand.
Oh gosh,
so he holds his glove with his stump. I'm not trying to be dismissive here, but that's what it was. He holds it on this side way. He throws the ball, and as soon as the ball let go of his hand, he puts his glove on and tried to catch it. So he caught the ball with the same hand that he threw the ball, and that guy made it to the majors and stayed there for a decade. Jim Abbott, an inspiration for any Special Olympic athlete out there, but more than that, he achieved his goal of playing in the major, even though he was born without a left hand. Actually, he was born without a right hand, I'm sorry. So he was a left-handed pitcher.
And not only that, Kevin threw a no-hitter in 1993 when he was a member of the Yankees against the Cleveland Indians. So
I think that's about the time I saw him because he was with the Yankees the first time I saw him.
Yeah, there's no way that there's tons and tons and tons of two-handed pitchers that cannot and I have not thrown no-hitters, and a guy with one hand did. So that was really a feel-good story, not for baseball, but I think for humanity. You know what I mean? And it's an inspiration to special athletes.
The guy had skills. Just to watch him pull the trick of putting his glove on every single time he threw the ball was amazing. When you went to watch him play live, jeez, that guy got skills. He's great. He's awesome. He does that really quickly. It's like he changes. He just puts the glove and he's ready to catch the ball. And sometimes he had line drive. hit at him, and he had the time to put the glove just in time to catch it. Jim Abbott was an inspiration, and he caught my attention, we could say, when I was a kid.
And not just an inspiration for Special Olympic athletes, inspiration for abled athletes, and inspirations for people like us, anybody, saying that, look what this guy does. And, if you say you can't do something, I don't have the tools to do this, I can't do it. Well, look at Jim Abbott. The guy had one fucking hand, and he threw a new hitter, and he parlayed into a 10-year baseball career. So yeah, that's a good choice.
Makes everybody feel lazy with their two hands.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your number 5, Rob?
Again, my number 5, not, and this is in no particular order. My number 5, again, I'm gonna have to go with Mariano Rivera. And for reasons obvious, I remember first seeing Rivera in '96. Well, in '95 he first came up with the team, but '96 was the big one where the Yankees would play 6-inning games, and all you would have to do is, if you had a lead going into the 6th inning, after the 6th inning you were fine in '96, because you had Rivera come out and pitch the 7th and the 8th, and then you had Wetland come out and pitch the 9th. That season, Kevin, all of the games turned so short that, because all of a sudden you that psyche's in your opponent's mind. You're like, oh fuck, we got to score a run, we got to get a lead before the 7th inning.
Exactly, we got to do something before the 6th or 7th, or otherwise we're dead water.
Yeah, there's no point going on. And obviously, I seen Rivera deliver so many clutch moments in the postseason. He had a few flubs here and there. The ALCS in Game 4 against the Red Sox comes to mind, and the 2001 Game 7 World Series comes to mind. But again, that wasn't really his fault.
He had more ups than downs.
Yeah. Greatest, most saves in MLB history, most saves in postseason history, ERA ridiculous, innings pitched ridiculous, and for a reliever. So yeah, Mariano Rivera. And again, and this isn't in no particular order. There's absolutely no way that he would not be in my top 5, because he's given me so much joy in my life as a baseball fan.
My number 4, it's a great coincidence you actually mentioned him when you were talking about, is Mr. John Wetland, a player that I saw play live when he played for the Expos after his stint with the Dodgers. That's where he became a closer and a danger in Major League Baseball, was the Expos. That's where his reputation was born, and that's where he became a star and a force to be reckoned with. First pitcher I've seen be dominate. First closer of his generation. He was one of the first to bring that mentality of not necessarily game over, but mentality when he steps on the mound, be ready and be ready for anything. And he's there with an attitude and ready to beat you and dominate you. And if he needs to be, humiliate you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And Wetland was lights out. And I remember when we got him in '96 from the Expos, when he came over. And I didn't know much about him. But you could he was a big boy. He would
show up with his turtleneck and be like, what? What is that guy? And then he would throw, he'd be surprised. You'd be like, wow.
Then he would throw, he would just throw heat. Wetland was a dangerous pitcher. And I loved watching him. And again, to bring it back, to that season when in the '96 season, they just, when you have those closers like Rivera, like a Wetland, like those guys, when the team's already been defeated, when the guy comes out to the mound before you even take the take the field for the 9th to try to get back in the game, you're not only you're beating the team physically, you're beating them mentally, and those what those kinds of closers did, Kevin.
You're number 4, Rob.
Again, my number 4, for reasons like Mr. Rivera. Number 4 would be Andy Pettitte, and we're talking a guy who's won the all-time wins in postseason play. He's played enough games, and Andy Pettitte was Mr. Reliable for the Yankees, and especially especially in the postseason, Pettitte would always follow up. I can't remember what his record was, but Pettitte would never start series for the Yankees. He was a massive Game 2 starter, and there were so many incidents where we would lose Game 1 of a series, or we'd be down in a series, and Pettitte would pitch the next game, and he would pitch magnificently, like absolutely magnificently. And yeah, and he's Mr. Clutch too in the playoffs. He pitched a lot of great games, and even when he went to Houston, and when the Astros had that run in 2005, he pitched a lot of wonderful games. And yeah, and for the same reasons of Rivera, the Pettitte just gave me a lot of great memories, and he was great to see, and I miss him in the Yankee uniform. How we could use it that year, and he was one of those guys that this year I should say, and he was just one of those guys that he was Mr. Reliable that you could always count on. And it's funny, Kevin, the reason why he became probably up there as far as one of my favorite pitchers go, and obviously whenever the Yankees come to Toronto, I'm always there, and it always seemed like every time I went to a Yankee game, Pettit was on the mound. Like, it was just weird that it was like every time I was there.
Seems like every time I watched a Yankee game, Pettit was on the mound.
Yeah, well, maybe he was.
Or maybe relief sometimes too. When his short relief stats when he did not have the best season, sometimes it was in long relief. So it seems like I've always seen Pettit play.
Yeah, he just
seems like he played for 40 years too.
Yeah, he was durable. I remember he first came up in '95 again, so he played almost 20 years. So
let's not just shy away of that answer too. He had troubles and controversy in his career and was able to overcome that and continue and be still classified as a great legend of the sport too.
Yeah, because he handled it the right way. He admitted he made a mistake and he explained what had happened. He didn't shy behind it. So I think he garnered a lot of, not that he got off the hook, but he garnered a lot of respect the way that he handled it.
Absolutely. All right, my number 3 is a tie. And it works that way because both of them share the same last name, not the same first name. Both played for the same team and have a flair that were similar. The one had more of an attitude, but it's Pascual and Carlos Perez. They're not related, Rob, but still, Pascual Perez, when I was a kid, with his little dance when he used to throw the ball, a strike, little dance, little hop here and there. His attitude, his happiness, his joy on the mound was contagious, and whenever he was playing, it seems like his defense had an extra step to it. Same thing for Carlos Perez, but Carlos Perez was maybe not as good as Pascual was, but Carlos did the same type of show and dance on the mound, jumping lines because he was superstitious, all the little things that a pitcher or an athlete do that when you're a kid it catches your attention. And Pascual Perez and Carlos Perez both caught my attention when they played for the Expos, and in the rest of their career too. Carlos played for the Dodgers. That's where he had his best times after Montreal, and for Pascual it was with the Yankees after, with the Braves before Montreal. But those players had a little something that you don't see now when it's all cookie cutter, all coming out of the assembly line, except maybe the Mike Trout of this world, and that's why he gets so much attention outside that he's a great player.
Yeah, I remember first seeing Carlos Perez on Sports Desk, and I would think
hitting a Gatorade bucket with baseball bat. Yeah, I saw that too.
No, it wasn't that. I remember.
With the time he threw a bag full of bats in the field.
The first thing I remember that too, but the first thing for my first memories of Carlos Perez is, like you said, how animated he was when he would strike someone out. How he would turn around and do the little dance thingy, right? It was and jumping over the foul lines. He was a lot of fun to watch.
But you know what? That's important to me, Rob, because it shows passion, dedication, and determination in another level. And sometime to make it and to be there, you cannot accept for yourself to be a nice person, because your first goal and objective is to get to the show and stay there. And sometimes the sacrifices that needs to be done is your own niceness. Sometimes you just have to do whatever it takes sometimes to get there. And it's something that I have to say I admire in some of people, is the fact to bring their game and their everything that they do in their life to bring this level of their accomplishment up a notch.
And it just shows they're having fun too.
Exactly. But players like Pascual and Carlos Perez coming out of Dominican Republic had to work really hard, especially in that time, because the gateway were not like they were today. You did not sign a contract on July 1st when you become 16 like you do today. Back then it was a lot different, and people needed to work hard to get them out of there and to get them in the right playing position for them to be successful in the mid-'80s, late 80s for Pascual, and the same in the 90s for Carlos. They really needed a determination, a motivation, an ability to put baseball first, and that's what you need to get there. And those players show me how to play sport and have fun as well as doing it. So especially Pascual. Carlos was not as fun-loving maybe as Pascual, but both really caught my attention, first of all by dancing whenever they threw strikes.
Yeah, and it just showed a lot of fun, and how they and that's what baseball's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a lot of fun. Kevin, you okay? So you kind of lumped a couple of guys together. So I'll do the same thing here for 3 and 2.
But that was my 3. I still have 2 and 1.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry, I thought so. You have like a 3A and a 3B.
Yes.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll just say one then. One of my players is David Cone. He won a World Series for the Jays. He won a little bit more with the Yankees. But
all right, yes, I give it to you.
He perfect game. David Cone pitched it against. your Expos in 1999, I believe.
Yes.
David Cohn, Joe Torre's book, Once a Always a Yankee, was a masterfully written book, and he talks a lot about David Cohn and just the way how much David Cohn was a leader. And that first season in '96, the first season that I seen the Yankees win the World Series, David Cohn had a lot of big outs in that series against the Atlanta Braves.
You know, you have to thank the Expos for that World Series win. The more I think about it, Wetland and David and Cohn.
Yeah, Graham Lloyd.
Graham Lloyd. Yeah, true.
He played for the Expos too. But yeah, no, Kevin. David Cohn was always a guy. He was always one of my favorite players. I always used to try to mimic his delivery when I would play baseball with my friends and stuff. And he was just another reliable guy. He won a Cy Young. David Cohn is, he's definitely in my top 5 list, 100%.
My number 2 is probably one of the most famous characters in the history of baseball. He was good in his time, but he wasn't necessarily the best. He was a journeyman, on some sort, a player that still plays to this day at the tender age of, he's actually 68 now, Mr. Bill Spaceman Lee, Billy. And I'll explain to you why I still love him, because every single day on TSN radio, he does a 10, 15 minutes hits every day. And he's still pitching all summer long, all winter long. He finds clubs to pitch for in the States, in Canada. Softball, baseball, underthrow, long throw. Is a player that loves the history of the game. If you've watched baseball, Ken Burns' film, Billy is interviewed many times in it. Just a great player with a great different type of mentality. He's very anti-capitalism, very outspoken with his opinion. He wrote a lot of books, co-written 4 books, The Wrong Stuff, The Little Red, talking about the Red Sox. He was a Red Sox legend too, played for the Expos as well. So Billy, a character. If you don't know Billy, watch a documentary, get to know about him, and you won't regret it. It's just a character and a legend in the sport.
Oh, Billy, and he's a lot of fun. Like, I don't agree with all his political views, but
of course not. Who does? But it's the fact that I just like the character in itself.
Yeah, he's outspoken, and he's called the Spaceman for a reason, because he's
out there.
He's out there, 100%.
Straight out there.
He was a junk ball pitcher. He's not a guy who's going to throw a 98 mile power fastball bite, but he parlayed into a career, Kevin. And at the end of the day, and I didn't realize he was still pitching. That's awesome.
No, and he just loves the game. And it's when you see him talk in the baseball documentary, there's something traveling through that screen. He has a little something. He has a passion for that game, a love that's unconditional of baseball. He doesn't agree with everything. He's very outspoken in his opinion of the game and of everything. But it's just great to see a pitcher like him who always loved to hit home runs too. He always tried to hit well when he batted. And when he talks, if you can have a chance to listen to his radio hits he does on TSN 690, just listen to it. It's just a great all-around character. And when he describes his performance as a pitcher of 68 years old, it's just awesome to listen. It's funny, it's real, it's true, and it's just authentic. And Billy may be the most authentic pitcher ever.
Oh, yeah, and just a lot of fun, too. For me,
your number
Kevin,
2.
My number 2 is another former person who won a World Series with the Blue Jays, but always also won a World Series with the Yankees. And we go back to the 96 team where he was the winning pitcher in Game 6 against the Braves. We're talking Jimmy Key.
I thought you were going to say Roger Clemens.
No, Roger Clemens was not a Roger Clemens would have made this list before all of his steroid shit allegations. I just lost a lot of respect for Roger Clemens. Jimmy
That's
Key.
the difference between Pettit and Clemens, the way they handled the situation. Yep. Just take the 2 cases together, you understand why Rob feels this way.
Yeah, 100%. For me, Jimmy Key, he was one of my favorite players as a Yankee when I was a kid, and he only played there. He played there 4 years, but I remember how excited when they got him in '93, because I obviously knew how great of a pitcher he was for the Jays. And he was my favorite pitch. He was definitely my favorite pitcher when I was in my 12 to 14-year-old run as a person, when I was in my 12 to 14-year-old years as a person. And Jimmy Key, he was another guy who I would go out there and I would try to mimic his delivery, which was kind of hard because he was a left-hander and I am a right-hander. And he had a lot of good seasons. He pitched. He started the All-Star game in 1994 for the American League, the shortened unfortunately shortened season from 1994 for both of us, more you than me, unfortunately. I never won a Cy Young Award. Was an All-Star 4 times. He close as he came to winning the Cy Young was in 94 when he finished second. He had 17 wins and he led the American League that year. That was his best totals. It was 93 when he went 18 and 6. That was back in the days when there was no wild card, so the Jays were still kind of a thorn in my side. That looks like those days are back 20 years later. And Jimmy Key, it just brings me back to just being a kid again, and how much I liked him and how great he looked in the Yankee uniform.
Very nice. My number one is probably not a surprise for anybody out there. Hall of Famer, class of 2015, former Montreal Expos player who, yes, he came up with the Dodgers, had great stint with Montreal, but became a legend of this sport with the Red Sox, especially for their 2004 and on. Yes, I'm talking about Mr. Pedro Martinez, Mr. Wavy Afro Mullet in the mid-90s, pitching for the Expos and trying to get that inside pitch trending again. And we have to say, one of the last dying breed of pitchers with not necessarily an attitude, but with an edge and not afraid to use the whole plate and to use it to his advantage and to play with the minds of Pedro Martinez is a legend of this sport. For good reason, he had his controversial and bad moment, like he said in his Hall of Fame speech, the Hans Zimmer situation. He hoped it would never happen, but yes, he's going to be remembered for that. But for most of all, for just the way he pitched that ball, the way he threw that ball fast, inside, anywhere, controlled it, that curve, that he basically mastered all the pitches too, except the knuckle one.
Yeah, Pedro was looking back now, I can say, Pedro Martinez is a great player. I respect Pedro Martinez, but going through those Yankee Red Sox wars, Pedro Martinez was not my favorite person.
He was probably the exact opposite, I guess.
Oh yeah, because he was a guy that you're like, oh fuck, he's pitching great. But my best memories of
he's pitching, I'm fucked, and he's gonna make me angry because he's gonna get inside my skin.
Struck out 18 Yankees at Yankee Stadium through a one-hitter. That I remember that from Pedro Martinez.
The hit was the first pitch of the game was the hit. The rest was perfect. It was an inverted, broken, perfect game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it went the other way around. He just
he started with the hit, then shut it out for the rest of the
game. Then struck out 18 batters. That's amazing.
And if you look at the documentary, he in the baseballs, I can't remember where, but he talks about this game. He says, after that first hit, I told myself I'm not going to give anything else, and you know what? He did that.
Bob Costas writes how that's the best. And think of all the perfect games you've ever seen, or the no-hitter games. Bob Costas says that's the best game he's ever seen pitched.
That tells you something because he's seen a lot of games pitched.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely has. Well, for me, Kevin, my number one is a guy, who was more recently my favorite player until he retired. And I haven't really found a favorite player until this gentleman retired. But my number one is Mike Mussina.
The Moose.
Who spent 8 years with New York. Started his career in Baltimore. I don't know what it was about him. I just really like Mike Mussina. He was a player that really fit into the Yankees. The Moose was, for me, a guy who's always so close but never got it. The Moose never won 20 games in his career until I believe his last season. I am going to double check that actually, but no. But other than that, Mussina took three. There was 3 occasions when he had perfect games going, and he lost them with 1 out or 2 outs in the ninth.
That has to hurt.
Yeah. The Moose threw. The Moose won. Here, let me just put it into perspective for you. Mussina won 19 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in his career.
That sucks too, because you don't have that mental award of mental trophy of getting to 2020 win in the season. You're just 18 or 19. It's so close.
And he went on top. He won 20 games in 2008. He won 20-9 in his last season and retired the next season. My best memory of the Moose is simple. 2003 is the American League Championship Series. It's Game 7. It's the Red Sox and the Yankees. The Red Sox are up 5-2 in Game 7. Or it might have been 5-1 at that point. I can't remember. Whatever, they were up. The Roger Clemens had just been chased from the game, and they brought in Mussina with no men out and 2 men on, and with the Red Sox threatening, they could have really put the nail in the coffin in this. So they bring the Moose in. He strikes out the first batter and then gets the next batter to bounce into double play. And then the Moose goes on to pitch 3 or 4 innings of scoreless ball to keep the Red Sox at 5 runs. The Yankees come back and eventually win, and with Aaron Boone's home run off of Tim Wakefield. And lost in all of that, I remember saying to my friend the next day, I go, lost in all of this Aaron Boone heroics is going to be Mussina's performance, because he saved that game for us too. And another member I have in Mussina, and it wasn't so much him who did it, but he was the pitcher on the mound when Derek Jeter did the flip in the game against Oakland. So yeah, I mean, Mike Mussina was, and a lot of people know that I was a big fan of the Moose. A guy who never won any Cy Youngs, was an All-Star a few times, but yeah, definitely, I would say my number one as far as my top 5 pitchers, without a doubt.
Let us know who are your favorite pitchers on Twitter at 216 Stitches Pod. That's at 216 Stitches Pod, or by email 216stitchespod at gmail.com. 216stitchespod at gmail.com. Let us know your favorite pitchers, the reason, and we'll read your emails in the next show. So thanks for listening. For Robbie Mack, I'm Kevin Laramie, and until next time on 216 Stitches, well, play ball.